Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who joins us from around the world. We're so glad you're here. This is Andrew and Renee. Welcome to the Stacks series.
It is wonderful to be back with you all. We have quite the journey ahead of us today.
Today, we are exploring the history and science of risk, uncertainty, and how we make decisions. And honestly, this topic, it really hit me while I was reading through the research.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a world that is just absolutely governed by chance. Every single thing we do, every time you get in a car, every time you buy a stock, every time you, choose a sandwich for lunch, you're rolling the dice in some way.
You are.
And yet we are obsessed, truly obsessed, with trying to predict the future. We try to use math to sort of tame all that chaos.
It's the fundamental human struggle, isn't it? The desire to impose some kind of order on what feels like a completely chaotic universe.
Exactly.
And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the machinery of uncertainty, so to speak.
The machinery, I like that.
We are going to trace how humanity went from believing that a roll of the dice was the literal voice of God.
Which is just a wild concept to start with.
It is. And we'll go from there to 17th century French gamblers who just wanted to win more money.
Right. The practical application.
And then all the way to modern actuarial science that, and this isn't an exaggeration, basically runs the entire global economy.
And then, just when we think we've got the math figured out, we're going to throw a curveball.
We are.
We're going to pivot to the psychology of why we as humans are actually terrible at understanding the very math we invented to solve this problem.
Exactly. We have to distinguish between the tools we built and the, let's say, the wetware we use to operate them, our brains.
So the mission for this conversation is to really understand the difference between a risk you can measure and an uncertainty that you can't. Because that distinction, it turns out, defines our economy, our careers, and our daily lives.
It defines everything.
So let's go way, way back. I want to start in what we might call the Dark Ages, or the Middle Ages. Before we had supercomputers, before we even had basic probability theory, how did people deal with the unknown?
Well, this is what's so interesting. The sources we looked at start in a really unexpected place.
Yeah, medieval moral philosophy.
Yes. If we go back to the, let's call it the prehistory of probability, we find something quite fascinating. Before we had the math of gambling, we had moral gambling.
Okay.
And for this, we have to look at the story of Bishop Wiebold.
Bishop Wiebold. This is, what, 10th century? So we're talking 1,000 years ago.
Correct. Around 965 AD in northern France. Now, to understand this, you have to put yourself in that mindset. The church generally frowned upon gambling, big time.
Right. It's a vice.
It was seen as a vice, a way to lose your soul along with your coins. It was associated with drinking, swearing, general debauchery.
The usual suspects.
But Wiebold was an archdeacon, and he was clever. He invented a moral dice game known as the ludus regularis seu clericalis.
A moral dice game. That sounds like the world's least fun party game. Hey guys, put away the ale, let's roll for piety.
It was certainly structured. It used 3 dice. And if you do the math on 3 6-sided dice, the same kind we use today, there are 56 possible combinations of numbers if you ignore the order.
So like a 1-1-2 is the same as a 2-1-1.
Exactly. And Wiebold assigned a specific virtue to each of those 56 combinations.
Okay, so it's like a pious version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
You roll the dice, and instead of a critical hit or fireball, you get what?
You get charity. Or humility, or chastity. For example, if you rolled a combination that represented charity, which was worth, say, 3 points, and then humility worth 18 points, you'd sum them up to get 21 points.
So you're competing to be the most virtuous person at the table.
In a sense. It was designed to teach the clergy about the hierarchy of virtues, but the key insight here, the really important part, isn't the game itself, it's the mindset behind it. They did not care about the odds of rolling a virtue. They didn't sit there and calculate that, humility was harder to roll than charity.
So why do it?
Because they believed that the outcome of the roll was divine will.
Right. That's the crucial distinction. The die isn't random in our modern sense.
Not at all.
They didn't see it as a random number generator. They viewed it as a telephone line to heaven. God is moving the cube.
Precisely. If I roll, well, I don't know if lust was on the board, but if it were,
I hope it was.
that would be God telling me something specific about my soul, not just a statistical outcome.
It's a message.
It is a message.
Yeah.
They believed randomness was a mechanism for the divine to speak. It wasn't a mathematical distribution. And this is why probability theory took so long to develop. Think about it.
Yeah.
If you believe the outcome is determined by a god, you don't try to calculate the frequency of the outcome.
You just pray harder.
You pray harder. You don't build a mathematical model. You build a shrine.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
It would be blasphemous to do math on God's will.
Exactly. It would be presumptuous to try and predict God using arithmetic.
So when does that shift? When do we stop praying at the dice and start actually counting them? Because at some point, people must have noticed that a 7 comes up way more often than a 2 or a 12 when you roll 2 dice.
You'd think so?
Even if you're pious, you have eyes.
Well, we see a shift in the 13th century. There was a tome called De Vetula, which was attributed to Richard de Fourneville around the 1200s.
De Vetula.
And this is significant because it contains the first known calculation of permutations for 3 dice.
Permutations. Meaning he actually sat down and listed out every single way the dice could land.
Exactly. He moved from God decides the dice to there are exactly 216 outcomes. He listed all the possible sums you could get and then showed how many ways you could get each sum.
That is a huge mental leap.
It's massive.
You're taking the magic out of the cube and replacing it with data. You're creating what we now call a sample space, the list of all things that can happen.
It is the birth of the sample space. But the real Avengers Assemble moment, the moment where probability really explodes into a proper science, doesn't happen for another 400 years.
Right. Not until 1654.
1654, the year of Blaise Pascal and Pierre de Fermat.
The titans of mathematics.
That's them.
And I love this part of the story. This whole mathematical revolution didn't start in a university or a monastery. It wasn't about calculating the orbit of planets.
No.
It started because a guy wanted to know how to split the pot in a gambling game.
The Chevalier de Marais, a French nobleman and a very dedicated gambler.
He had a problem.
He had a dispute. And he brought this problem to Pascal, who then started writing letters to Fermat, and their correspondence literally changed the world.
So let's unpack this problem of points, because it sounds simple, but it's actually really, really tricky. I tried to explain it to my brother the other day, and I think I just confused both of us.
It is deceptively simple. Okay, here's the scenario. 2 players are playing a game of chance. Let's say they're flipping a coin. The first one to get, say, 10 points wins the entire pot of money. But for some reason, maybe the police raid the gambling hall or dinner is ready, who knows, the game is interrupted before anyone wins.
So let's say I have 8 points and you have 7 points, but we have to stop right now. How do we fairly split the money in the pot?
Exactly. That is the question. Do we just split it 50-50?
No, that seems unfair to me because I was winning. I had 8 points. I was closer to the finish line. I should get more than half.
Correct. But then do we give it all to you?
Well, that seems unfair to you because you could have come back and won. You were only 1 point behind me. A lucky streak could have saved you.
Precisely. This was the riddle. The prevailing wisdom at the time was just to look at the past, how many points everyone had accumulated.
So like split it based on an 8-to-7 ratio?
Maybe. But what Pascal and Fermat realized, and this was the stroke of genius, is that you cannot look at the past. The past is sunk. It's over.
Right.
You have to look at the future.
The future possibilities?
Yes. They had to calculate how many rounds were theoretically left to play and what the percentage chance was that each player would have won if the game had actually continued.
This is the birth of expected value.
It is. Pascal essentially mapped out the branching paths of the future. He thought, okay, if we flip again, either Andrew wins the point or Rene wins the point. If Andrew wins, he has 9. If Rene wins, he has 8. From there, what happens next?
He's running the simulation in his head.
He calculated the proportion of all those possible future universes where you win versus all the ones where I win.
That is mind-blowing for 1654. They realized that the future, while it's not certain, can be modeled. We can put a number on maybe.
That number is the expected value. They realized that a 50% chance of winning 100 gold coins is mathematically worth 50 gold coins right now. They quantified hope.
Wow. And they used what we now call Pascal's triangle to visualize this, right?
Yes. Pascal's triangle is this beautiful, elegant way to see these combining probabilities. If you look at the rows of the triangle, they tell you exactly how many ways a certain combination of heads or tails can appear.
So it turned chaos into order.
It turned the messy chaos of the future into a neat geometric structure. It showed that while you can't predict the next flip, you can predict the distribution of 1,000 flips.
So we've gone from monks rolling dice for virtue to mathematicians splitting a pot by looking into the future. But this is still just games. It's, parlor tricks. How do we take this gambling math and build a civilization with it? Because that's what we did. We built the modern world on this.
That is the great leap to actuarial science.
Which, let's be honest, sounds incredibly boring to most people. Actuary is usually the punchline of a joke.
An actuary is someone who wanted to be an accountant but didn't have the personality for it.
Right. But that's a shame because you're saying they're the architects of the modern world.
I am. Without actuarial science, you have no shipping industry, no construction, no mortgage market. You can't build a skyscraper if you can't insure the risk of it falling down. You can't drive a car if you can't insure the risk of a crash.
The modern economy needs a safety net.
And actuaries weave that net.
So let's define it. What is an actuary actually doing? Are they just super advanced gamblers?
In a way, yes. At its core, actuarial science is the discipline of applying math, statistics, and financial theory to assess risk. The source material describes something called the actuarial control cycle.
Which sounds like a dance move, but I'm guessing it's a process.
It's a feedback loop. Very simple, really. Step 1, define the problem. For example, we need to sell life insurance to 40-year-olds.
Okay.
Step 2, design the solution. This means pricing the premium. How much do we charge them so that we can pay the claims and still make a profit?
And step 3,
monitor results. Did as many people die as we thought they would? If not, we adjust the model. Maybe our price was too high or too low, and the cycle starts again.
So it's scientific trial and error, but with, money and death.
And this brings us to the mathematics of life and death, the life table.
This is the DPXE1 thing in the notes. That looked like algebra homework.
It did, but it's a simple concept. In actuarial notation, TPXEA just represents the probability that a person aged $6 will survive for 2 more years.
So they don't know when I am going to die. I'm an individual.
Yeah.
I might get hit by a bus tomorrow, or I might live to be 105.
No, you are an individual. You are unpredictable. But they know, with frightening accuracy, how many people in a group of 100,000 men aged 40 will die this year.
It's the law of large numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The individual is chaotic. The aggregate is predictable. If I look at one molecule of gas, I have no idea where it's going. If I look at a balloon full of gas, I know exactly what the pressure is.
And actuaries treat humans like gas molecules.
Essentially. And this allows them to calculate something called the net single premium.
Walk me through that, because this is where the math really meets the money.
Let's say you want an insurance policy that pays your family $100,000 when you die.
Okay.
The insurance company looks at the life table. They look at the probability of you dying in year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on for the rest of your projected lifespan.
So they have a little chart saying, Andrew has a 0.1% chance of dying this year, a 0.12% chance next year, and so on.
Right. But they also have to factor in the time value of money, because a dollar paid to your family in 20 years is worth a lot less to the insurance company than a dollar they have in their pocket today.
Right, because they can invest it. If you give me $100 today, I can put it in the bank and earn interest. So $100 today is better than $100 in 10 years.
Exactly. So they discount that future payout of $100,000 back to today's dollars. They take the probability of your death in each year, multiply it by the payout, and then discount that amount back to its present value.
And then they add all those years up.
They sum up all those discounted potential payouts, and that gives them the fair price for the insurance today.
It's just the problem of points again.
It is.
I just had the aha moment. It's exactly the same logic Pascal used.
It is. The game is your lifespan. The pot is the insurance payout. And they are calculating the odds of the game ending in round 1, round 2, or round 50, and discounting it all back to the start.
So insurance is just a wager where the insurance company is the house, and they have calculated the odds much, much better than you have.
Precisely.
But it's gotten more complex than just life tables, hasn't it? The sources mentioned something called Solvency II. This sounds like a sequel to a bad action movie, but it seems important for the economy.
It's very important. This is the modern regulatory framework, particularly in Europe, because, as we've seen in financial crises, sometimes the insurance companies themselves go broke.
Right. What happens if everyone dies at once in a pandemic?
Yeah.
Or a massive hurricane hits Florida? Or the bond market that they invested in collapses? The model breaks?
Exactly. So Solvency II introduced 3 pillars to prevent that. Pillar 1 is quantitative. Do you have enough cash in the vault capital reserves to pay out in a worst-case scenario? This is the stress test.
Okay, that makes sense.
Pillar 2 is governance. Do you have good managers? Are you actively monitoring your risks? Do you have proper internal controls? It's about how you run the business.
And pillar 3.
Transparency. Are you telling the public and the regulators the truth? Are you showing your work? It's about accountability.
So it really feels like we've built this massive global financial structure, all on the assumption that we can predict the behavior of large groups.
We did.
We industrialized risk. We turned the unknown into a commodity that can be bought and sold.
We did. We essentially claimed that we had tamed the future. But here's where the cracks begin to show.
Uh-oh.
We became very, very good at measuring risk, but we forgot about uncertainty.
Okay. This is the big fork in the road. And I think for most people, they use those words interchangeably. That's a risky investment. That's an uncertain outcome. But in economics, they mean very, very different things.
They do. And we have to introduce our protagonist for this section, Frank Knight.
The economist. He wrote Risk, Uncertainty, and Profit back in 1921.
A seminal work. Knight made a distinction that is absolutely critical, and yet it's so often ignored. He said there are two different beasts out there. One is risk. One is uncertainty.
Okay, define them for us. How do we spot the difference in the wild?
Risk is when you don't know the outcome, but you know the distribution, you know the odds.
Like rolling a die. I don't know if it will be a 6, but I know there's a 1 in 6 chance.
Exactly, or actuarial tables. We don't know if you will die this year, but we know the death rate for your demographic. Risk is measurable.
And because it's measurable,
It's insurable. You can price it. You can write a contract for it. Casinos operate on risk. Insurance companies operate on risk.
okay, so that's risk. Measurable, known odds. What's uncertainty?
Uncertainty is when you don't know the outcome and you don't know the distribution. You don't even know what the odds are.
So like a new pandemic breaking out, or a war in a stable region.
Yeah.
Or a technology that hasn't been invented yet.
Yes. There is no historical data table for the success of the iPhone before the iPhone exists. There is no actuarial table for a nuclear war between superpowers. This is the realm of the unmeasurable. You cannot assign a probability to it because it is unprecedented.
They can't put a number on it.
Not an objective one, no. And Knight had a really interesting take on profit related to this. He basically said that if you are just managing risk, you shouldn't expect to get rich.
Why not? If I run a casino, I can get pretty rich.
You get a steady return, yes, a predictable income. But Knight argued that true economic profit, the kind that builds empires, is the reward for taking on uncertainty, not risk.
Why isn't risk profitable in that same way?
Because if it's just risk like shipping goods across the ocean where we know the shipwreck rates competition will drive the profit down to zero,
How so?
if everyone can calculate the risk, everyone can price it perfectly. You can buy insurance for it. It just becomes a commodity, a cost of doing business. There's no magic there, no secret knowledge.
Right. If I can insure against it, it's just a line item on my budget. It's not really a gamble anymore.
Exactly. True entrepreneurs, Knight said, exist in the realm of uncertainty. They step into the dark where there are no tables, no charts to guide them. They make a bet on a future that cannot be calculated. If they are right, their reward is profit.
That makes so much sense. The safe, measurable bet pays interest. The uncertain, unmeasurable bet pays profit. It rewards you for knowing something or sensing something that the model can't see.
Precisely. The entrepreneur is the one who says, I believe people will want to rent out their spare bedrooms to strangers, even though there is no data to support the idea of Airbnb yet. That is pure uncertainty.
But this raises a huge philosophical problem. If we are stepping into the dark, if we can't measure it objectively, does probability even exist in those situations?
Now you're asking the deep questions. That sounds like an existential crisis waiting to happen, doesn't it? Does luck exist if I can't measure it?
It does feel like that.
Well, enter Bruno de Finetti. He was an Italian statistician and philosopher, and he had a famous, very provocative statement. He said, probability does not exist.
That is a bold statement for a statistician. That's like a priest saying God does not exist.
He was trying to make a point. He meant that probability isn't a property of the world, like gravity or mass. A coin doesn't have a 50% probability embedded inside of it. The coin is just a piece of metal. The probability, it's in your head.
Okay, so if it's not in the coin, what is it?
It is a property of our minds. It is a measure of our belief. This is the subjective probability revolution. De Finetti and another philosopher, Frank Ramsey, argued that probability is just a way of expressing how strongly we believe something will happen.
So if I say there's a 60% chance of rain,
Yeah.
I'm not describing the physical properties of the clouds. I'm describing my own confidence level.
Yes. And Ramsey came up with a very clever way to test if your beliefs are rational. It's called the Dutch book argument.
Explain that. I've heard this term in betting circles, but I never really understood it.
Imagine your internal beliefs are your personal betting odds. If your beliefs are inconsistent, let's say you think there is a 60% chance of rain, but also a 60% chance of sun and a 10% chance of snow, well, the math doesn't add up to 100%.
Right. I'm overconfident in everything. That sounds a lot like me, actually.
If you actually placed bets based on those broken odds, a clever bookie could construct a series of bets against you, a Dutch book, where you are guaranteed to lose money no matter what happens.
How does that work?
Well, if you're willing to bet based on a 60% chance of rain and a 60% chance of sun, the bookie can set it up so that no matter what outcome occurs, you pay out more than you can possibly win. You've bet more than 100% of the possibilities.
Because my internal math is broken.
Because your beliefs are incoherent. So Ramsey argued, rationality isn't about knowing the absolute truth of the universe. We can't know that. Rationality is just about keeping your internal odds consistent so you don't get fleeced.
That is surprisingly practical. It's not about being right. It's about not being self-contradictory.
It's about not beating yourself. It shifts the focus from what is the world really doing to is my own thinking coherent?
But here's the rub. We have the math from Pascal. We have the definitions from Knight. We have the philosophy from Ramsey. We should be perfect decision-making machines by now. We should be walking calculators.
But we aren't. Not even close.
Yeah.
I still buy lottery tickets sometimes. I still panic when the stock market dips.
We are so bad at this. And that leads us right into the behavioral revolution.
Section 4, why our brains are broken.
Or, as we'll see later, maybe not broken, but certainly different from the mathematical models. And the central figures here are, of course, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky.
The godfathers of behavioral economics.
They looked at how people actually make decisions in the real world, and they found that we are not econs. We are not the rational robots that traditional economic theory assumed. We are humans. And they developed prospect theory.
Prospect theory is essentially a map of human irrationality. It's a brilliant explanation for why we don't follow the expected value calculations we talked about earlier.
Okay, let's break down the key concepts. The first one is a big one, loss aversion.
This is the finding that, psychologically, losses loom larger than gains. Losing $100 hurts about twice as much as finding $100 feels good.
I feel that in my bones. If I find a $20 bill in my jeans, I'm like, oh, nice lunch money. If I lose a $20 bill, I'm annoyed all day. I retrace my steps. I beat myself up over it.
Exactly. The psychological impact is not symmetrical. And this leads directly to something called the reflection effect.
What's that?
It means our attitude toward risk literally flips. It reflects depending on whether we are looking at gains or losses.
How so?
When we face gains, say, I offer you a sure $500 versus a 50% chance of winning $1,000, most people become risk averse. They take the sure thing.
Lock it in. Don't be greedy. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. All those old sayings.
Exactly. But when we face losses, I offer you a sure loss of $500 versus a 50% chance of losing $1,000 or losing nothing, we suddenly become risk-seeking. We gamble. We'll take the chance to avoid the loss entirely.
This explains so much about the stock market.
It explains almost everything. It's why traders will sell their winning stocks too early to lock in that sure gain, but they will hold on to their losing stocks for way, way too long.
They're hoping to break even. It'll come back, I just know it.
They are gambling to avoid the pain of realizing the loss. That is the reflection effect in action. We become reckless when we're cornered by a loss.
Kahneman and Tversky also talked about heuristics.
Yes, heuristics are just mental shortcuts. You have to remember, evolution didn't build our brains to solve calculus problems. It built them to survive on the savannah.
Right.
If you hear a rustle in the tall grass, you don't sit there and calculate the probability of it being a lion versus just the wind. You run. That's a heuristic.
And usually they work.
Usually they save your life. But sometimes in the modern world, they fail spectacularly.
Like the availability heuristic.
Right. This is where we judge the probability of an event by how easily we can remember examples of it.
Which is why we are all terrified of shark attacks.
Exactly. Shark attacks are vivid. They're on the news. They're in movies like Jaws. They are highly available to your memory. Meanwhile, falling coconuts kill far more people every year than sharks do.
But you never see coconut death on the 6 o'clock news.
So you underestimate the coconut risk and wildly overestimate the shark risk.
It's why people are afraid of flying but will happily text while driving. Driving is statistically way more dangerous, but a plane crash is a huge, memorable story.
Precisely. And then there's my favorite one, the conjunction fallacy. This is the famous Linda problem. I love this because it exposes how much our brains just love a good story.
Okay, this is a classic. Let me set it up for everyone listening. Imagine a woman named Linda. She is 31, she's single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and she also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations.
Okay, so I've got a clear picture of Linda in my head. Activist type.
Right. Now, which of these two statements is more probable? Option A, Linda is a bank teller. Or option B, Linda is a bank teller and is active in the feminist movement.
Well, the gut instinct, for almost everyone, immediately screams B. It fits the description. It makes sense with her backstory.
Her being just a bank teller sounds wrong. It doesn't fit the story.
But statistically, it is impossible for B to be more probable than A.
Why?
Because B is a subset of A.
Right. Think of a Venn diagram. The circle of all bank tellers is big. The circle of feminist bank tellers is a smaller circle inside that big one. Linda cannot possibly be in the small circle without also being in the big circle.
But our brains don't think in Venn diagrams. They think in narratives. Option B is a better story. It has character development. It creates a coherent narrative of who Linda is.
So we confuse plausibility, does this make a good narrative, with probability. Does the math actually work? We trade logic for coherence.
Exactly. And so Kahneman's view for a long time was basically our brains use these lazy shortcuts, these heuristics, and they make us irrational. We need to be aware of them and force ourselves to think slow, use the math, and overcome our flawed nature.
That was the dominant view for a long time. It won him a Nobel Prize. But there's a counter-argument, a very, very strong one. And this brings us to the great debate.
Section 5, the feud.
It really is an intellectual clash of titans. On one side, you have Kahneman saying heuristics are biases that lead to systematic errors. On the other side, you have a German psychologist named Gerd Gigerenzer.
And what's Gigerenzer's take? Is he defending our lazy brains?
He argues that heuristics aren't lazy at all. He says they are fast and frugal tools that evolved for survival. He argues that in a complex, uncertain world, a world of Nietzschean uncertainty, not casino risk, less is more.
Wait, less information is better. That goes against everything the data science people tell us. We're supposed to want big data. More information is always better.
Not always. He calls this concept ecological rationality. His argument is that complex models, the big data approach, often overfit the data. You get confused by all the noise. Simple rules, he says, are more robust.
Okay, I need an example. Give me an example where a simple rule beats a complex calculation.
The gaze heuristic. Consider a baseball player trying to catch a fly ball.
Okay, a classic problem.
If you tried to program a robot to do this using physics, you would need to calculate the initial velocity of the ball, the spin, the wind speed, the air resistance, the friction. It's a massive, complex calculation.
And the player has milliseconds to do it.
Exactly. The player doesn't calculate the parabolic trajectory. The player uses a simple heuristic. Keep your eye on the ball and start running. Then adjust your speed so that the angle of the ball in your field of vision remains constant.
Huh. And that works.
Perfectly. If the angle stays constant, you will end up exactly where the ball lands.
So it ignores almost all the information, wind, spin, velocity, and just focuses on the one variable that matters.
Yes. And Gigerenzer argues this is better than the complex math because it works in real time with limited information. If the wind suddenly gusts and changes the ball's path, the heuristic adjusts instantly. The complex model would have to stop and recalculate everything.
That's amazing. It's a shortcut that actually outperforms the supercomputer in the real world.
It's an example of how our brains might be smarter than we thought.
Okay, that's a good one.
And here's a more serious example. Diagnosing heart attacks in an emergency room.
Oh, I remember this from the note. This is the decision tree study. This is fascinating.
It is. In a crowded ER, doctors have to decide quickly. Is this patient having a heart attack? Should they be admitted to the coronary care unit? It's a high-stakes decision.
And the complex method was using a computer program with logistic regression, right? Feeding it tons of data.
Yes. It used 19 different variables: age, blood pressure, family history, ECG readings, the whole shebang. It was the big data approach.
And what was the fast and frugal method?
A simple checklist. A decision tree with only 3 yes-no questions. 1. Is there a specific anomaly in the ST segment of the ECG? If yes, admit. If no, ask question 2. Is the primary symptom chest pain? And so on.
And the result? Don't tell me.
The simple checklist with only 3 questions was more accurate at predicting heart attacks than the complex computer model with 19 variables.
How is that even possible? How can using less data be more accurate? That feels completely counterintuitive.
Because the complex model was getting confused by the noise, all the irrelevant details. Maybe the patient is older but very fit, maybe they have high blood pressure but it's unrelated to their heart. The simple heuristic focused only on the strongest, most reliable signals.
It wasn't getting distracted.
It wasn't. And this is Gerolano's core point. In an uncertain world, complex solutions are fragile. Simple rules are robust.
So we aren't necessarily broken, we're adapted.
We are adapted to a world of uncertainty, not a world of casino gambling tables. Kahneman is right when we're playing dice. That's a world of pure risk. If you use a gut feeling in a casino, you will lose your shirt. But Gerolamo is right when we are navigating the jungle or the business world. That's a world of pure uncertainty.
That is such a crucial distinction. It's about using the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
If you use the wrong tool, you're going to crash. If you try to calculate the probability of your startup succeeding like it's a simple coin flip, you're deluding yourself. But if you try to catch a baseball using a spreadsheet, you're going to get hit in the face.
Perfect analogy. And speaking of using these tools, let's bring this to the modern day. Section 6, applying the science.
Because we aren't just monks rolling dice anymore. We are drowning in data. We have machine learning. We have algorithms determining our insurance rates as we speak.
We do. And we see this in the Albanian insurance study that was mentioned in the sources.
Right. This was about using machine learning to predict which car insurance claims were going to be the most expensive.
Yes. They analyze variables like the brand of the vehicle, the gender of the driver, and the age of the vehicle to see what predicts a big insurance payout.
And what did they find? Anything surprising?
Well, for one, males had a significantly higher claim frequency.
Shocking. I think my insurance premium already told me that one.
And certain car brands, they compared Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen, carried very different risk profiles. This is just actuarial science on steroids. We are using big data to refine those risk pools that Pascal and Fermat could only dream of.
We are trying to shrink the realm of uncertainty and turn it all into measured risk. We are trying to count everything so that nothing is a surprise.
That is the ultimate goal of big data, to make the entire world actuarial. But
There's always a but.
But we run into the limits of prediction. The source material had this fantastic quote by Jeff Bezos that perfectly summarizes the difference between a closed, predictable game and the real world.
The baseball quote, I loved that.
Yes. Bezos compared business to baseball. In baseball, he said, the outcome is truncated.
Meaning there's a cap on how well you can do.
Right. No matter how hard you hit the ball, the most runs you can possibly get is 4. A grand slam. You can't score 1,000 runs in a single swing. The distribution of outcomes is limited. The tails are thin.
But in business? Or in life?
It has fat tails. One swing like creating Amazon Web Services or investing in the right startup or inventing the iPhone can yield 1,000 runs or 10,000 runs.
Or on the negative side, one mistake, one black swan event can destroy everything.
Exactly. Total ruin. Actuarial tables work great for the middle of the bell curve, car accidents, life expectancy, things that happen all the time. They fail at the edges. They fail at the black swans, the pandemic, the 2008 financial crash, the invention of the internet.
This goes right back to Frank Knight. You can measure risk, you can optimize for the average, the predictable, but you can't predict the revolution. You can't put a number on the thing that changes the game entirely.
And that is the synthesis of our entire journey today, isn't it?
So what does this all mean for someone listening? We've covered 1,000 years of history. We've talked about monks, gamblers, philosophers, and psychologists. How do they use this tomorrow morning?
It means you need to know which game you are playing.
Okay, unpack that.
If you are dealing with something with plenty of data, where the rules are stable, like saving for retirement or insuring your house or even predicting rush hour traffic, use the tools of the actuary. Use the math. Use the slow, deliberate System 2 thinking that Kahneman talks about. Don't trust your gut. Trust the data.
Don't fall for the availability heuristic. Just because you saw a story about a lottery winner on the news doesn't mean it's a good investment strategy. Look at the stats.
Exactly. Be cold, be calculating. In that domain, the math works.
But
if you are dealing with uncertainty, starting a new business, choosing a life partner, navigating a crisis that has never happened before, don't try to force fit a complex mathematical model. The data doesn't exist.
In most cases, you have to use the heuristics.
Use the fast and frugal rules. Use your judgment. Be an entrepreneur in the Nietzschean sense. Accept that you cannot calculate the future, and instead focus on being robust. Focus on adaptability. Don't try to predict the flood. Just build an ark.
It's about having the wisdom to know the difference.
It really is. We started with monks rolling dice, thinking God was speaking to them through chance. We moved to Pascal and Fermat, realizing we could map the future with numbers. We built a multi-trillion-dollar insurance industry to protect us from that future. And then we looked inside our own heads and realized that our intuition, while sometimes flawed, is actually a brilliant adaptation for a world that refuses to be tamed by math.
It's a beautiful mess.
It is. Whether through math or through instinct, we are all just trying to make the best bet we can in a world we can never, ever fully understand.
And that is a perfect place to leave it.
I think so.
Before we wrap up, thank you to all our partners, sponsors, and scholars who made this podcast and the research possible. We're truly grateful for your support.
And to our listeners, thank you for being part of this journey with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow Stack Studios for more informative content. And support us in Patreon. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and let the search for wisdom guide you forward. Have a great day.